My excitement over my boss, John, getting a big promotion quickly turned to despair. John's big promotion will take him to England, away from me. I ran to the bathroom and cried like a baby. John was my boss, but I was in love with him and believed that he loved me. Yes, we were in love and married, but not with each other. While I was in love with John, I was also in love with my husband, Tom. I never intended to fall in love with John, but somehow I did. After working with John on several projects, he invited me to become his administrative assistant. John is a handsome man, and I was immediately drawn to his appearance when we began working closely together. John had the charisma to lead our team. He had a way of making me feel special whenever his attention was on me. 10 years older than me, John had a maturity and charm that I liked. Working side by side, we developed a closeness. He never missed an opportunity to compliment me on the way I dressed and looked, not in a sexual way at first. Somewhere along the way, our relationship became very personal. We talked about some things that I wouldn't discuss with my husband, including our sex life. My husband, Tom, was a completely different person. He doesn't have John's nice guy looks. He has what I would call rugged good looks. He is a wonderful husband and has never failed to please me in bed. Perhaps it was this difference that attracted me to John. John's touches on my arms and shoulders continued longer and longer. Handshakes between us turned into hugs. The first time his hand rested on my thigh, we both felt sexual tension. I never intended to cheat on Tom, but I had to admit to myself that I had feelings for John, and he had feelings for me. As his administrative assistant, I accompanied him on most of his trips. John never overtly pushed, but we both felt the attraction. I still remember the first time we danced on the trip. We went to a club with a large group of colleagues. Everyone else went to their rooms when John asked me to dance to what he said was his favorite song. It was a fast song, so I didn't mind. When this song ended, a slow song began to play. Halfway through the song, I melted in his arms. It was so wonderful. John is built very similar to Tom. Tom is a little more muscular and younger. That night we danced every slow song until closing time. When the last call was announced, John invited me to his room for a nightcap. I was very experienced. I knew that if I went to his room, we would end up in bed. I told him no, and that I couldn't do that to Tom. John insisted on showing me to my room. The kiss we exchanged at my door almost convinced me to let him in. My marriage meant too much to me to cheat on Tom. I reasoned that the kiss and a bit of dancing were not physical cheating, because I had stopped John from having sex. I admitted to myself that I did have feelings for John. I was ashamed of myself that night when I imagined John making love to me. I have always prided myself on being a moral person. This pride did not allow me to betray my husband, although I wanted so badly to give in to my feelings for John. The Monday morning after that trip, I walked into John's office and told him we needed to talk. "John, we need to talk about this last trip. You know that I care about you deeply, but we are both married. I will not cheat on my husband. Molly, I see it in your eyes. You love me as much as I love you. We could express our love, and our spouses would never know about it. I saw it in your eyes after we danced. You wanted me to make love to you." I quickly cut him off. "John, I admit it. I wanted to make love to you that night. I just can't. I don't want to ruin both of our marriages. Please respect that." I turned and left his office. Our relationship continued in the same spirit. During our trips, we dined together and most often danced. Slow dancing was our favorite. It was the closest we came to making love. John rubbed against me, and I rubbed against him in return. Every time he tried to convince me to go to his room, I refused and shared a nice kiss with him at my door. Back in my room, I imagined John making sweet love to me. I tried my best to hide my feelings for John from my husband, but he suspected that something was going on. He asked several times if anything was going on. Every time I told him that there was nothing between us. We were colleagues and good friends. There were several corporate events where John and I danced. Each time I told John that dancing in front of our spouses was a bad idea, but he insisted. From my interactions with John's wife, Gail, I realized that she suspected that something was going on between us. She confirmed her suspicions when she invited us to have dinner with them. Gail cornered me in the bathroom. Listen, Molly, I can tell that you and my husband have feelings for each other. I quickly cut her off. Mrs. Decker, nothing is going on between us. No, you mean there is no sex between you two. There's definitely something going on there. He's obsessed with you. Do you remember that last office party when you danced indecently close to him? I nodded. He screamed your name when he had sex with me that night. He said nothing was happening, but I already knew that he was in love with you. You just haven't given up yet. I see it in your eyes. I admitted that I had feelings for her husband, but I had no intention of cheating on my husband. Please, please don't say anything to my husband, I begged her. She agreed if I promised not to cross the line. This was 6 months ago. If I'm honest with myself, I know that if I hadn't made that promise to Gail, I probably would have given in to John's advances. A week after John's announcement, I was called into his office. I was confused because I knew John was in a meeting outside the company. Confusion turned to surprise when I was greeted by John's wife, who motioned me into the office. Gail closed the door behind me and sat down in her husband's chair. As you know, we are moving to England due to John's promotion. My agreement with John accepting this position was that you would not go with him. I'm tired of being second only to his love for you. Gail, I fulfilled my agreement with you. I told him no every time he suggested sex. I know it. I talked to John about his feelings for you. John confessed his love for you and admitted that he tried to seduce you. He says you resisted his advances. I think the fact that you turned him down made him want you even more. You are the forbidden fruit he craves. Do you realize that most of the company thinks you two are having fun? My God, really? Yes, Molly, that's true. You two look like teenagers in love. I told John that if he wants to stay married, your relationship will end when we move. I come with an offer that will allow you to end this relationship and get rid of this forever in both of your heads. I don't need Molly's ghost hanging over my marriage for the rest of my life. I'll arrange a weekend together for you. A weekend where there are no rules. You two can do whatever you want. Yes, including sex. In exchange, you will both sign a postnuptial agreement. This agreement stipulates that you both agree that after your weekend together, you will never, and I mean never, have any contact again. If you do this, it will be grounds for divorce and 100% of the marital property will be given to the spouses, me and your husband. Your weekend will be at our lake house and your husband must be present. What? You are crazy? My husband will kill me, I said angrily. Right now, he thinks you're having an affair. A panicked expression appeared on my face. Don't tell me this is news to you. He came straight up and asked me while you two were cheek to cheek at the Christmas party. This way, both of you will be able to satiate your feelings forever. Yes, this will be done intentionally. You will show your husband the post-nuptial agreement and tell him that after the weekend he will know for sure that it is over and you can move on with your life. Let's say I agree to this. Why is he there? To humiliate him? No, nothing like that. His presence is my insurance policy. This way, I will be sure that he knows about the agreement, and I believe that I can count on him to fulfill it. I'll have something for him there too. This will keep him busy while you spend time with John. I don't understand what you have for Tom. To be frank, I have a 22-year-old red-haired girl. She is stunning, and she is a professional. A little tit for tat, I guess you could say so. I stood there stunned. My mind was racing. My first reaction was that Gail's plan was the dumbest idea ever. Tom would never let me have sex with John, but I desperately wanted to make love to him. Gail gave me this opportunity. The price had to be high. Tom had to find out that I cheated on him, but we would have been equal if I had allowed him to spend the weekend with the redhead. I can't believe my husband would trade a weekend with a call girl for me to break our marriage vows. Darling, in fact, she is not like that, I would say about her as an actress. She is stunningly beautiful. An ordinary man like your husband would never refuse to spend the weekend with her. If I allow you to spend time with my husband, he deserves something for himself as compensation. What if he doesn't go for it? You say he loves you. If he loves you the way I love my husband, He'll allow it for one weekend. Once it's over, he'll never have to wonder if your romance is over. He will know for sure. If he loves you, he will let you spend this weekend." For some reason, what she was saying made sense. I would spend the weekend with John and it would be over. Ergo, I would never have to worry about my feelings for John. Deep down, I knew it was a bad idea, but I was blinded by my love or lust for John. I agreed with Gail's plan. We ate lunch twice in our conference room while planning the details of the weekend. At the second dinner, John and I signed our post-wedding agreements. Gail discussed each line with us in detail. She said this was to make sure no one got the content wrong. One of the secretaries certified them to a notary. I should have been embarrassed. I think she knew what we were doing, but I was too excited to care. I still hadn't told Tom and wasn't sure how to do it. Gail suggested that I not tell him until we were at the lake house. Like everything else, I thought it was a mistake. But again, I stupidly agreed. Gail suggested that I tell Tom the whole plan only when we arrived at the lake house and only after he met the redhead. I would show him the post-nuptial agreement and tell him he's going to spend the weekend with a beautiful woman. Gail won't be there. She said she couldn't handle it. I had to give Tom her number so he could call if he had any questions. Questions, that would be an understatement, I think. By giving Tom just a few days' notice, I hoped to keep his inquiries to a minimum. Tom was unhappy, but agreed. He was clearly leery of the weekend. I tried not to think about it, all the time telling Tom that I needed this weekend. When I thought about the weekend, I assumed that everything would turn out exactly as Gail said. John and I would have our weekend that we've always dreamed of, and it would all be over. I would spend the rest of my life making amends with my husband. I almost canceled everything when I saw red-haired Jackie. Now Tom wasn't the only one who was jealous. She was 11 on a scale of 10. Hot and young, with big breasts. Gail was right. There would be no man who would refuse her. She hugged Tom tightly and kissed him on the cheek. I wasn't thrilled about my husband having sex with this woman. I was trying to figure out how I would compare myself to her after the weekend, but for now I stuck to the plan. The company's head of security, Larry, took care of our bags, and then was assigned to keep Tom busy while John and I conferred. He also had to make sure that John would not be physically harmed when Tom found out what would happen at the lake house. John and I were talking across the room when John pulled me towards him for a passionate kiss. We had just broken the kiss when Larry shouted that he and Tom were back. Damn. Larry should have let us know before they entered the room. Tom walked in just as John and I were hugging. I was so glad he didn't see us kiss before they walked in. Tom knew something was up and asked me what the hell was going on. John directed us to a secluded room to talk privately. I thought I was going to throw up before I started speaking. I took a deep breath, asked Tom not to interrupt, and conveyed my confession to Tom. I told Tom I was in love with John, but I was also in love with him. I explained how the weekend would work and the post-wedding agreement John and I had signed. The signed post-wedding agreement was in his suitcase, and he could read it when he walked into the room. Tom begged me to go home with him right now. I tried to tell him that this was the best thing for us, and that he would see that everything would work out for us. When he asked why Gail wasn't here, I gave him her phone number, saying she would explain everything. Tom told me that my actions were threatening our marriage, but when he didn't leave, I thought everything would be fine, just like Gail said. Dinner was very stressful. John asked me not to wear wedding rings, and I did. Tom, looking at my hands, immediately noticed this but did not say anything. He just pointed to my bare finger. If looks could kill, I'd be dead along with John. I don't know where Tom went after dinner, but John took me to our bedroom. We hugged and kissed for a few minutes when he told me he wanted to go for a swim before he put me to bed. John and I walked to the pool, holding hands. I was so relieved to see Tom sitting in the chair looking at Jackie's ass. I was jealous of her and her perfect ass, but I was going to have John. Letting go of John's hand, I quickly walked up to Tom and laid my head on his shoulder. I said, "I love you, Tom. Everything will work out. We'll talk when we get home." My heart sank when Tom shouted loudly, "Go to hell, bitch!" John quickly grabbed my hand. leading me back to our bedroom. He saw that there were tears in my eyes. He said, "Darling, everything will be fine. You'll see. We've come this far. Let's have the weekend we've always dreamed of." John kissed me on the lips, pulling me toward the bed. My love for John overcame my concerns about the situation with Tom. His lips were incredible. He slowly undressed me until I stood naked in front of him. "Oh God, you are so beautiful. I've loved you for so long, and now I can be with you." John kissed me before taking off his clothes. I examined his body. It was as beautiful as I thought. He wasn't as muscular as Tom, but he was very handsome. John lowered me onto the bed before joining me. His hands roamed over my body before finding my wet pussy. "I know we have the whole weekend ahead of us, but I need to make love to you right now," John whispered to me. I spread my legs, inviting John to enter me. Slowly and passionately, John made love to me. It didn't take long before he let out a loud grunt, shooting his seed into my waiting pussy. We lay there, hugging and kissing. Disappointment was in my head. It was much faster than I was used to with Tom. Okay, I figured John would have enough time before the weekend was over to make me come. It seemed like an hour or two had passed when John asked me to take a late-night swim in the pool. It sounded so romantic that we quickly got dressed, not knowing who was still awake at that time of night. We went out to the pool, fortunately, not finding anyone there. I grabbed John's hand as we approached the pool. "Oh, John, this is so wonderful. I've loved you for so long, and I can finally show you how much. I will miss you, but we have 2 days to spend them in love and remember it for the rest of our lives. Let's get naked and make love in the pool. Take off your clothes, I'll get us a couple drinks." I was just approaching the door when I heard Tom's voice. "Hey, asshole." I turned around in horror and saw my husband kick John in the groin. As John doubled over in pain, Tom kicked him in the chin, and John fell backwards into the pool. I ran to the pool and helped John get out of it. I was trying to see if he was okay when I noticed Tom wasn't there. Larry ran out, helping me get John into the house. A few minutes later, Larry went to check on Tom but told us his room was empty and our car was missing. I went to his room, crying and already knowing that he would not be there. In the morning, John found me curled up on the bed. He lay down next to me and said how sorry he was that things weren't going as planned. When I asked where the others were, he told me that he sent the others home so we could be alone. He also offered to take me home if I wanted it. I seriously considered moving back home, but decided the damage had already been done. This was supposed to be my last chance to be with John. I put Tom out of my mind and decided to have fun. We spent the weekend eating, drinking, and trying to make love. Although Tom's blow did not kill John's manhood, it did cause John a lot of pain. By Saturday evening, John was very stressed. And I don't mean that in a good way. We tried to make love, but either it hurt him too much or it didn't give me much pleasure. No matter how afraid I was to return home, I was ready to go. Gail was right. The weekend gave me a chance to get John out of my head. I was truly in love with Jonah, but I knew that my love for him was not the same as my love for Tom. She was right about the forbidden nature, what excited me. I was going to miss John, but I was ready for him to be out of my life, and I was ready to go back to being Tom's wife. When we got to the driveway, John helped me out of the car, but it was actually me helping him since he was moving very slowly. He still hasn't recovered from Tom's blow. John hugged me and kissed me passionately. He told me how much he loved me and how much he would miss me. Just as I was about to tell him I loved him, I heard Tom's voice. "Asshole, if you don't get out of here in 5 seconds, I'll do more than what you've already experienced." John quickly kissed me goodbye before driving away. I grabbed my bag, glad to put this whole episode behind me. I walked into the living room and found Tom sitting in his favorite chair. I noticed a post-nuptial agreement on the coffee table. I started to apologize, but Tom cut me off. "No, you will answer my questions before you say anything. Don't you dare try to lie, I want the truth. Did you have sex with John this weekend?" "Yes, we had sex." "Why did I have to be there while you were having sex with him? Was it to humiliate me?" "God, no, honey, I would never do that to you." This was Gail's condition. She wanted to make sure you were aware of the agreement. She said that this way you will understand how committed we both are to never having contact again. That's why you were given our agreement and a signed copy of John's post-nuptial agreement. Big guy Larry, is he an employee of the company? Yes, he is the head of the security service. But you know, I told you he's guarding the party at the lake house. I started to get nervous about Tom's questions. Tom picked up the agreement. The notary's name seems familiar. Does she work for your company? Yes, this is Dana. She is one of the secretaries. I think you're familiar with her. Tom's face broke into a grin. I was getting more and more worried. Those dinners you told me about, where you planned to spend this weekend, they were in your office, weren't they? Yes. Why are you asking these strange questions? Just answer my questions. I only have one left. How do you think this should have ended? Tears were now streaming down my cheeks. Gail said that if you loved me enough to let me spend this weekend with John, you would allow it, and then I would spend the rest of my life making amends to you. I held my head in my hands, crying and realizing how stupid it sounded. Tom picked up his phone and pressed the red button on the screen. The questions are over. I'll show you your room. Okay, I need to rest. Wait, what do you mean? My room. Now you live in the guest room. That's where you'll stay. But no, I want to go with you to our bedroom. You didn't think that I would sleep in the same bed with you after what you did? Oh, I guess you really thought I'd do this, didn't you? Do not leave me, I asked through tears. Tom didn't say another word. He just carried my bag to the guest room and threw it there. I watched as he walked into our bedroom. I noticed that the door had a new handle with a key lock. Oh God, I'm in trouble, I thought. I cried myself to sleep, not knowing what would happen next. Tom had already gotten up and left when I got up. It was Monday morning and I still had to go to work. This was to be John's last week and there was a lot to do before he left. I did my best to pull myself together and go to work. It was difficult to concentrate on work without knowing what my husband was thinking or doing. I had several meetings with John and my new boss, Sylvia. The strange thing was that I looked at John in a new light. My regret for what we did this weekend was overwhelming. Our agreements were written with the understanding that John and I would need to be in contact after the weekend for work purposes. With that in mind, they stipulated that John and I could communicate during that final week at work, but nothing romantic or sexual could happen between us. I felt it would be difficult for John to do this. Several times his hand lingered on my shoulder and back. Several times he whispered in my ear how special the weekend was for him and how glad he was that he was able to express his love to me. Each time I looked at him and hissed fiercely, reminding him of the agreement. I was physically and emotionally exhausted when I returned home. It was dark and cold. Tom wasn't always home when I got home from work, but I hoped he would be tonight. I texted him several times during the day. Nothing was received in return. I wrote to him again, asking if I should host a dinner for him. Just like during the day, I did not receive any response. My calls went straight to voicemail. Tom did not return home that night or the next. I was worried that he had simply left me. Wednesday was to be John's last day in the office. I planned a going-away party and even invited his wife. The party was very enjoyable, and everyone had a lot to say about John and the wonderful job he will do in England. I worked hard, staying in the background, giving John space. When we finished, I helped John and Gail load their cars with John's personal belongings. Gail left, saying that she was going to pick up the last boxes from her office and say goodbye to me before heading home. As soon as Gail walked out the door, John grabbed me in his office. I protested, raising my hand. John, we can't do this. Remember the agreement. Shh, there's no one around, no one will know. This is our last kiss. John hugged me tightly and kissed me for a long time. Molly, I love you and will miss you terribly. I need one last time to remember you. We kissed for a few moments before he moved me to the couch. I should have told him no, but I thought it would be the last time I saw him. A few moments later, my clothes were removed. I just wanted it to end, but I couldn't bring myself to stop him. John didn't last long before he told me with a grunt that he was coming. I quickly got dressed before running to the bathroom to freshen up. I used several wads of toilet paper to wipe his sperm from myself as best I could. I couldn't believe I let him do this, but now it is almost over. John and I walked up to his car with the last of his boxes. He kissed me again before driving away. As I pulled into the driveway, my heart pounded when I saw Tom's car in the garage. As soon as I turned off the car, my phone rang. It was John, so I answered the call. "Is he fucking kidding with this?" John shouted. "John, what are you talking about? Gail and I just got served, and I just got off the phone with the general manager. Your husband is suing the company. Is this some kind of game you two are playing?" "John, I don't understand what you're talking about. Tom here. I'll get to the bottom of this." When I entered the living room, Tom was sitting in his chair again with a big smile on his face. Before I could say anything, my phone rang again with my mom's tone. Tom looked at me and laughed. "You should probably take this." Mom, calm down. You're talking too fast. Start over again." I heard my mother take a deep breath. "I received a strange email from someone I didn't recognize who told me to check out your Facebook page. There are photos of you dancing with a strange man, and another photo of you kissing this man at what appears to be a hotel room door. The caption under each picture reads, 'Corporate slut.' Your status now shows that you are divorced. What the hell is going on?" I looked at Tom, who was simply smiling. "Mom, this is all a big mistake. Someone hacked my account. I'll call you back." I hung up, looking at Tom. "What have you done? What exactly are you asking?" "I've done a lot in the last few days. If your mom was asking about your Facebook page, I was just trying to help you." "What does this even mean? John said you're suing him and the company." It was the same look I saw that evening at dinner. If looks could kill. Glad to hear that the asshole and his wife received my documents. Don't worry, you'll get yours soon. But yes, I am suing both of them for alienation of affection. The funny thing is that my lawyer said that most of these cases go nowhere, but he said that with the evidence I have, we have an excellent chance of winning. Gail's admission that she organized the weekend will go a long way in ensuring that I receive a significant portion of their assets. Regarding your company, did you know that they have a very strict fraternization policy? I have to thank you for having such an end-to-end registration system. This made it easier for me to find employment documents for your company. Using a company employee as a notary would be enough to prosecute the company. But the presence of a company security officer and scheduling weekends at the office would push my case to a great conclusion. My God, what have you done? You and your lover, my wife, started this. I'm just reacting. Did you really think that I would let you have sex with him? And we will live happily ever after. We grow old with you, holding on to your fond memories of how you and John cuckolded me that fateful weekend. Sorry to tell you this, but I don't play like that. Tears streamed down my face as I realized what a mess I had made. Please, Tom, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. Let me make it up to you. Tom laughed devilishly. Molly, the best thing about you and John royally screwing up was Gail's involvement. I wonder if this was her plan all along. I was completely confused. What does it mean? Do you remember that Gail made you and John sign this post-nuptial agreement? It stipulated that you and John could not have any contact after he left town. No less important is that it contains one more provision. It stipulated that the two of you could have unlimited contact for one weekend, including sex. Knowing that you would still have to work together for a few days the following week, the document stated that the two of you should not have any romantic contact after the weekend. The document stated in great detail that there should be no non-work-related contact until he left the country. Of course, sex was excluded, but no kissing was even specifically written into it. I gasped. There was no one around. There was no way he could have found out about John and me after Gail left. Watching that kiss in the driveway, I realized that a guy in love won't leave without seducing you at least one more time. I just knew he would try. I have a wonderful photo of you and John kissing less than 20 minutes ago. Would you like to see this? Here, look at this cute photo my private investigator took of you. Two kissing. Tom, it was just a kiss. Yes, you're right, it was just a kiss. You may make the judge think that it was just a goodbye kiss and that the postnuptial agreement should not be invoked. But I have other photos that are even better. Tom handed me another photo of John from that same sofa. My God, it's not what you think. Oh yes, that's right. John wanted one more time and you let him. Don't like the quality of the photo? Amazing, right? This is the quality of the photographs when the photographer was in the next building and shot through the window of John's office. Aren't you very curious if anyone else has been watching you like I have? Kissing alone would violate the postnuptial agreement. But damn, the photos of you having sex with him on the couch, completely breaking it. Don't you wonder if this was Gail's plan all along? If I had assumed that you would break the terms of the agreement, she should have assumed the same. I can't believe she would say, have fun with my husband this weekend and all will be forgiven. Don't you think she set you up? My God, Tom was right. Please, Tom, I made a terrible mistake. I love you. Please, can we talk and work this out? What? Now I have some thoughts. Let me think about how this all happened. You didn't talk to me when you were making your plan. Have sex with John. You didn't ask me to join you when you had lunch, planning to cuckold me. As far as I remember, I did not take any part in the discussion to destroy our marriage. I was never given the opportunity to talk you out of your stupidity. But now you want to talk to me. Sorry, I should have talked to you. Tom stood up, cutting me off. I'm going to show you the same courtesy that you show me. I'll tell you how everything will happen, and now you won't interrupt me. You will be served with the divorce papers in the next few days. I must change them to reflect your violation of the post-nuptial agreement you kindly provided. You can stay in the house until the divorce is final. That's as long as you stay in the guest room. The terms of the divorce will be the same as those outlined in the post-nuptial agreement you drafted. My lawyer said that if I made it up, it would be impossible because it would be too harsh on you. The fact that it was your idea or Gail's idea that you agreed with makes it entirely feasible. You will not get anything from our marriage, not the car you drive, not your jewelry, not any part of my company, not any of the assets we created during this marriage. I could even rid you of any of your clothes, but I don't need them. You will not receive any alimony, no maintenance, no home. The funny thing about all of this is that it was Gail's idea. Please, Tom, I exclaimed. Stop, I said, don't interrupt. I'm not finished yet. You asked what I did. I am coming for your precious John, his wife, and your company. I served them all today. The best part is that you provided me with all the evidence that puts the company right in my line of sight. My lawyer is going to give your company 2 offers. First, they pay me $5 million, and I don't reveal the company's plot to destroy my marriage and make me a cuckold. Their strict moral policies are very helpful to me. My second proposal is that they pay me only $500,000. A good deal, don't you think? The caveat is that they fire both you and John on moral grounds in public. But Tom, it would ruin us both. Oh yes, that's exactly what you're going to do. Now you are beginning to understand Molly. I also sent a letter to your family, which should now be in their email inbox, which includes a copy of the postnuptial agreement you signed, along with a recording outlining your plan to humiliate me by entertaining John almost in front of my eyes. Oh my God, you didn't do it! I still can't believe that you thought so little about me that if they had given me a pretty actress, I would let you do it. I would never even think about cheating on you, and certainly not with an available girl while I was married. I admit that Jackie is sexy as hell. Did you know that she gave me her number before I left? But you said you wouldn't have sex with her? I said through tears. No, I said I wouldn't have sex with her while I'm married. I called her yesterday to see if she could help with my lawsuits. We made a deal. I wouldn't mention her name in lawsuits or call her as a witness. She promised me 3 days off after the divorce was final. She said something about having to get all my errands done ahead of time because I wouldn't be able to walk properly for a few days after this. Not sure what she meant, but damn, I want to know. Oh God, Tom, please don't do this. Hey, I also thought you might benefit from being fired on moral grounds. I'm sure you can find another company that needs a corporate slut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. As for John and Gail, I will deal with them personally. If Gail really did this, knowing she was going to take everything from her husband, I bet she didn't count on me taking any of it. I have just one question for you. Did you really believe that I would allow you to humiliate me like that and not do anything? I cried for a few moments as I searched for an answer. Tom, I don't know what I was thinking. I was upset about John leaving. Gail suggested the idea of a weekend getaway. She said it would be good to get this out of our heads once and for all. Gail told me that if you loved me, you would let me have one weekend. God, I was so stupid. Tom laughed. Finally, we agree on something. In your world, if I loved you enough, I would let you spend the weekend having sex with your lover and then take you back as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry, but you should have known that this was not the man you married. I took our vows seriously, and when you broke them and shoved it in my face, you killed the love I had for you. When I look at you now, I don't see a woman getting married. I just hope your weekend was worth it. I wanted to tell him that it wasn't like that and that I was sorry. All that came out of my mouth was crying. Finally, I called my mom to come get me. I knew I could no longer stay in what was my home. It was difficult to explain my stupidity to my parents. The expression of disgust and anger was more difficult to bear than their silence. I called work, saying I was going to take 2 weeks off. In the second week, I received a call saying that I had to be at work on Friday for a mandatory meeting with the CEO of the company, who was flying into town. I assumed that Tom had given them his ultimatum, and I should have been fired. I cleaned myself up as best I could, and my father took me to the office. He walked me into the conference room and told everyone that he was going to stay with me. The CEO, accompanied by the HR director and a woman I didn't know, entered the room. The CEO began, "Mrs. Adams, may I call you Molly?" I nodded. "Molly, I think you know why we're here. Your husband, Mr. Adams, is suing a company for allowing an inappropriate relationship between a company executive and his subordinate. In the short time we had to investigate this matter, it became clear that company resources were being used to support inappropriate relationships. Our lawyers have advised us that it is best to reach an agreement with your husband or, as he put it, your future ex-husband. What I have to discuss with you now must remain strictly confidential. Your father can only stay if you both agree to keep everything discussed in this room confidential, or your father will have to leave." My father agreed as a tear rolled down my face. "Your husband gave us 2 options for resolving the lawsuit. Our lawyers suggested a third option. This option will require your approval. Mr. Adams wanted you and Mr. Decker fired, or he wanted very significant compensation. We objected. Mr. Decker has already been fired on moral grounds. We didn't see any other options, but we decided not to fire you, but to increase his payment to $1 million. You will be demoted from executive assistant to secretary. Your salary will remain the same, as will your benefits." He pushed a piece of paper towards me. "This is an agreement that sets out what I just told you." My dad spoke. "We'll have our lawyer take a look at it and we'll get back to you." The CEO looked worried. "Please do so, but we don't have much time to respond to Mr. Adams." Dad drove me straight from the office to his lawyer. I was shocked at how quickly we found ourselves in the lawyer's office. Last week, I was served with divorce papers, but I didn't have a lawyer. I guess I was hoping Tom would change his mind. After an hour of waiting, David Wilbur agreed to be my attorney regarding the divorce and my new employment issues. Mr. Wilbur told us that he reviewed both the divorce petition and post-nuptial agreement, as well as the agreement that our CEO presented. "Molly, we can challenge the divorce on the grounds that the post-nuptial agreement is very cruel. The problem is that it was essentially compiled at your request. If Tom had forced this on you, there was no way it would have been feasible. We can fight, but I don't like our chances. Our best chance is to wear Tom down to change his mind." I quickly spoke. "I want to fight. There are some troubling aspects in this agreement with your company. Yes, they want to settle with your husband, but if they fire you, you have an even worse case of sexual harassment. This agreement contains provisions that prohibit you from testifying in your husband's lawsuits. They won't be enforceable, but they can use them to undermine your authority. A key provision of this agreement prohibits you from taking action against the company for sexual harassment. This is what they are trying to achieve." I was confused. "John didn't force me. I did it out of my own stupidity." The lawyer looked at me with a serious look. "I know you believe it was voluntary, but he was your boss. He had a big influence on you. I would suggest that we take a different strategy. We join your husband's claim of sexual harassment. You will, of course, lose your job if we join the lawsuit, but I think that at some point it is inevitable." The lawyer left the room to give my father and I a chance to talk. I reasoned with my father that if I joined Tom's efforts to go after the company, I would have a chance to restore some kind of relationship with Tom and save our marriage. Without my consent, the company could not agree to Tom's terms of settlement. I wasn't fired, but the atmosphere was almost unbearable. I was an outcast. No one spoke to me, and the looks I received were painful. My parents still supported me, but even they could not hide their disgust at the situation I had put myself in. My plan to win back Tom's favor failed. He refused to speak at the divorce hearings and mediation sessions. When we requested counseling, the judge scheduled a hearing on the matter. I was called to testify and questioned about my weekend with John. I tried to soften the effect, but even my parents thought I was stupid fool who thought she was in love. Tom's lawyer asked me one last question. "Was this weekend worth it?" I shouted back, "No, I wish this never happened." Ultimately, the judge ruled that since the postnuptial agreement was my idea, it was enforceable and granted the divorce without consultation. Tom was true to his word. I received nothing during the years of our marriage except my clothes. My parents allowed me to stay with them since I had nowhere else to go. I continued to work in the company, but as a secretary. It was torture to go to work every day. I was isolated in the office, and when I saw others, they looked at me as if I was sick. I was looking for another job, but had to stay until the trial was over. 4 months after the divorce was final, my attorney notified me that he and the parties had reached an agreement to settle all lawsuits related to the case. I was surprised to learn that all parties were required to meet to sign settlement documents. My lawyer told me that he thought it was Tom's idea, so he could have one more show at me before it was all over. I was hoping to see and talk to Tom. I haven't heard anything from him since the divorcee. I did my best to dress up without looking impatient. My lawyer and I arrived first, followed shortly by Tom and his lawyer. We exchanged pleasantries, and I asked Tom if we could chat a little after the signing. My hopes rose when he agreed. The company's CEO and his lawyer were scheduled to arrive next. They both looked very angry. The first of many shocks occurred when John entered. His clear professional look was gone. His hair was a mess. Sporting a scraggly beard, he looked weak and sick. I leaned towards my lawyer. "He looks terrible. Where's Gail?" I asked. Before Mr. Wilbur could answer me, Gail followed her lawyer in. She was dressed impeccably. The next surprise was that she and John were sitting on opposite sides of the table. A man in a suit entered the room, accompanied by 2 women who appeared to be his assistants. The women placed packages of documents in front of each of the participants. The man in the suit spoke. "Thank you for meeting here to settle this lawsuit. In front of each of you is a package with the terms agreed upon by your lawyers. Please understand that by signing the attached documents, you agree to cease this legal action and agree to absolute confidentiality. As you all know, there are severe penalties for violating the confidentiality agreement that is written into the documents. I confirm that funds will be deposited into accounts and checks will be issued as soon as agreements are signed. I expected Tom to make some grand speech to finally get his revenge, but that didn't happen. I think all he had to do was watch us all sign the agreement. Each of the signed documents was collected and notarized by assistants. One by one, each side turned to its lawyers. It's just Tom and I, and our lawyers left. Tom asked if the lawyers could give us a room for a few minutes. We went into the adjacent conference room and sat down at a wide table opposite each other. "I think you won in the end," I said. "You couldn't be more wrong, Molly. Nobody won here today. I lost my marriage. What I received today was financial compensation for the diabolical plot that managed to destroy my marriage." Money doesn't make up for what I lost, but it helps. Judging by the look you gave John and Gail when they walked in separately, I'm guessing you don't know what happened to them. No, I haven't heard anything about it. Their divorce is almost complete. I was right about Gail having a plan to dump John and take all their assets. The weekend was a shambles. She knew he would do almost anything to fulfill his fantasy of being with you. When she brought up the idea of a post-nuptial agreement, he jumped at it. She got you right, too. You've walked right into her trap. She knew my private investigator was following you, and she knew that I wouldn't tolerate you having sex with John. I was part of her revenge on you. She knew I would go after you like she was going to go after John. She had her own private detective watching your now famous last kiss, and his office was equipped with cameras. With this evidence, she can take everything from him. What she didn't count on was that I would follow her. Since this is confidential, I can't tell you how much, but I'm getting good compensation from Gail and John. Well, most likely it will be from Gail, since she'll rip him down to the bottom of his pants. I have to say, I was a little upset that you were going to profit from joining my lawsuit, but since the company couldn't fire you over your sexual harassment claim, they gave me a pretty decent increase to my settlement. I understand that as part of your agreement, you are leaving the company. Yes, I hate going there to work now. I'm glad it's over. Tom, is there any way to give me a second chance? You said how upset you were about losing our marriage and we could get it back. Well, that won't happen. Things are getting serious with my new girlfriend. In fact, she should already be here to pick me up. You should say hello. My heart sank, but I knew it was a long journey. We returned to our lawyers and they finished filming the cases. Mr. Wilbur said I would receive a check in a week. This money wouldn't change my life, but it would allow me to get my own place and pay my bills until I found another job. When we all left, a black Mercedes drove up to the front door. My last shock was to see a stunning red-haired girl get out of the Mercedes. Molly, do you remember Jackie? I looked at Tom in shock. But Tom interrupted me. Not anymore, she gave it up. Jackie ran up to Tom, hugged him and kissed him. When Tom got into the driver's seat, Jackie ran up to me and hugged me tightly. I'm so glad to see you again, Molly. I wanted to thank you for freeing Big Tom. He changed my life. I can't believe you left him for a weekend with little John. She raised and showed me her little finger with a laugh. He was quite disappointed, wasn't he? Jackie blew me a kiss as she got into the Mercedes. After a long kiss, Tom set off, leaving for his new life without me. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.